Hey everybody, welcome to the weekend edition Sports Frenzy 2.0, taping here on the 18th of February, 2022. This will hit tomorrow morning, the 19th. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Glad to have you aboard. It's been a rough week for the Sports Frenzy family of podcasts. It's just something's going on. I don't know if it's with our main podcast host, Spotify and Anchor. I don't know what's going on. Tried different computers, tried different ways to get our podcasts uploaded this week, and it's hit and miss. So hopefully we'll be able to get this through to you. It's going to be a short episode. Seems that if we do things in smaller, shorter segments, it's working a little better. So the one thing I want to point out, without Dave here, the Conquistador and I tried to do a Zoom collaboration, record the podcast that way last night. We had a massive winter storm blow through the area, so he couldn't be here in person. But again, because of technical issues not involving the Zoom part of this, we couldn't upload anything, so it's just going to be me this week. Dave will catch up next week. He will have a review for you here of Ghost and Volbeat. He just got to see them a couple nights ago. So when we get into next week's music segment on the weekend edition, he will have that for you. By all accounts, sounded like a fantastic show. Not my cup of tea, but hey, everybody's got different tastes, right? But what we both did listen to, and I will give you my review here this week, and I'm sure he'll chime in next week, is I did listen to the new album from Slash, Myles Kennedy, and The Conspirators. That would be 4. Yes, uniquely titled. It's their 4th album. The thing that's funny about this is I do have the first 3 albums, but I've never really gotten into them. I've listened to them maybe 3 or 4 times each. And you know me, I'm a huge Myles Kennedy fan, and Slash, between seeing him in concert with Guns N' Roses last year, this album, he is better than he's ever been on the guitar. So I don't know if being back in Guns N' Roses has reinvigorated him, if now he's trying to be more like a Dave Grohl, where he's putting all his efforts into all his different projects. But I'll tell you what, 4 is a fantastic, fantastic album. Again, trying to keep things short and sweet this week, so I won't go track by track. But I tell you, my favorite song on the album is Whatever Gets You By. It is great. Second song on the album. Sounds like Guns N' Roses. Myles Kennedy does change and alter his voice just a little bit. Of course, nobody can do that like Axl Rose. But Whatever Gets You By is definitely a highlight. Of course, we've already reviewed on past episodes Call Out the Dogs, The River is Rising, and Fill My World. Fill My World is probably the weak spot on the album, but if that's your weakest spot out of 10 songs, you're doing pretty good, because the more I listened to it, even though I initially was very on it, thought it was very mediocre, it does grow on you a little bit. It does. Again, it's the weakest song on the album, but it does get its way into your head a little bit. Other great songs: C'est La Vie, Actions Speak Louder Than Words, Spirit Love, and April Fool are other highlights on 4 from Slash, Myles Kennedy, and The Conspirators. I'm telling you what, I'm not spoiling anything for Dave because we've already discussed the album. But I think if you take away last year's Mammoth WVH, I think you're looking at the best album of the last 2 or 3 years here with Four. I think it's absolutely fantastic. That's how much I love this album. I definitely recommend it. Four Frenzies for Four. Can I say four any more times? So there you go. Some music news for you. Sting has sold his catalog. We've been talking a lot about this lately, where a lot of these musicians are selling their catalogs. Roughly somewhere between 250 and 300 million for Sting. That includes songs he did with the Police. We talked about the feud last week between Motley Crue and Pearl Jam. It looks like cooler heads have prevailed, as Pearl Jam's Stone Gossard, one of the original founding members of that band, had a podcast interview last week, and he tried to smooth the waters, as they say, and he spoke for Jeff Ament and Mike McCready, two other founding members of Pearl Jam, saying that they all love 80s hard rock, and Stone Gossard in particular said he bought Motley Crue's debut album and loved it, the one even before it got on a major label, before Motley Crue hit it big and they signed their major label deal. So Stone Gossard being the mature one here between Eddie Vedder and Motley Crue. So hopefully we're done with this, because I love both bands. Hate to be forced to take a side. Of course, I will always side with my 80s hair metal bands. And again, it just reinforces, and I mentioned this last week, reinforces Eddie Vedder is not the swell guy, the great guy everybody thinks he is. He's a douchebag. He's a typical phony douchebag, just like a lot of these celebrities are nowadays. Local music news, concert news. Garth Brooks is coming to Notre Dame. As he promised, he is returning on May the 7th, another big stadium show at Notre Dame. Again, hopefully now with COVID subsiding, fingers crossed, we get more of these. Of course, Billy Joel's rescheduled show is coming up in a couple months in June at Notre Dame. Looking forward to that. Bon Jovi, who I'm also going to see in April, has announced that on all the dates in April on his tour, a local band will open up for him. I say him because he acts like it's all him now. Look at any quote, recent conversation. It's my fans, my band. So, I think Tico Torres is still in the band, and David Bryan, two of the original members from way back in the 80s. It's so nice that he thinks so much of them that it's now just me and my band and my fans. Not us, not our fans. Now I'm starting to see why Richie Sambora wanted to get out of there. But local bands, if they go to, I think, Bon Jovi's website and submit an audition video, you might be chosen to open for Bon Jovi when they play in your hometown. Also, other tour news, Rod Stewart's going out with Cheap Trick. Paul McCartney's going back out for a short jaunt. Finally, the Poison, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Joan Jett stadium tour. Looks like it's finally a go after a couple delays because of COVID. They've added a few dates, so one of those dates is near me, so I might end up getting to see them after all, even though I've seen them all four of them before. And then finally, we've got new music coming from Journey. New album is called Freedom. The album art and the track listing, 15 songs, that's all been released by Neil Schon, but for some reason, no release date yet which I find a little odd. But this is Journey's first album of new material in over a decade. So, of course, as I always say here, good to see new music coming out. And I'm sure Dave would agree with me. He and I talked about stuff we're going to review here coming up in the next week or two. New song from the Scorpions, Seventh Son. Jack White's Fear of the Dawn. Ted Nugent's American Campfire. And March of the Insane from Dream Widow. Who, you might ask, is Dream Widow? That is the Foo Fighters. That is an alternate pseudonym they are taking on, playing very, very hard thrash rock. The band Dream Widow is the crux of the plot in the Foo Fighters' upcoming movie, Studio 666. And Dave Grohl says he's going to have a Dream Widow album out here in the next couple weeks to coincide with the release of the movie. But even he admits that's asking a lot, even for somebody who works as fast as he does and does as much as he does. It is asking a lot to push out an entire album with a vastly different style than the band is used to playing. We shall see, but we'll review March of the Insane coming up here in the next week or two here on Sports Frenzy 2.0. So as I mentioned, I'm trying to cut these segments short. Technical issues again, really causing us a lot of problems this week. So that is it for segment 1. Music is done and over. Segment 2, lots of TV and streaming news to pass along to you. So stay tuned. Quick promo, and we will be right back. In the fortress of solitary justice, 2 brave men hold the fate of the sports world in their hands. With the utterance of a single word, Frenzy! These seemingly ordinary men become the Maestro and the Conquistador, destined to save the world from stupidity on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Apple, and all noble podcast hosts everywhere. Dave and Kev stand for truth, justice, and the frenzy way. All right. Segment 2, Sports Frenzy 2.0, the weekend edition. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Glad to have you aboard as we fight through technical issues, but we're trying to get everything out to you as close to a normal schedule as possible. Feeling mildly fatigued? Need a day off even if you just took one a few days ago? Make $30 million a year but just don't want to work for it? You need to join the NBA Load Management Club right now. When they're not napping or texting, guest lecturers Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving will describe foolproof ways to earn tens of thousands of dollars by not doing anything. Sports Frenzy 2.0, available on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, is currently negotiating with LeBron James to bring his popular How to Make the Hall of Fame Without Really Trying webinar live and in person to the Load Management Club. Thanks again to Sports Frenzy 2.0 and all you apathetic fans out there for making us a success. Hey everybody, welcome to segment 3 of Sports Frenzy's Weekend Edition. I'm the Maestro Kevin Crane, flying solo. If you've been listening to all the Sports Frenzy podcasts this week, you know we're having technical issues, so our episodes are a little bit shorter than usual this week. This will hit late morning, February the 19th, 2022. Got one movie review for you. Nightmare Alley, one of the Oscar-nominated Best Pictures. Guillermo del Toro, his reimagining of an old noir movie. Great cast. Bradley Cooper in the lead. Heard a few people wonder why he wasn't nominated for an Oscar, and I tend to agree with them. I thought Bradley Cooper was fantastic in Nightmare Alley as a con man who might be getting conned. By who? We don't know. A lot of different people involved, a lot of different possibilities on that front. Nightmare Alley also stars Cate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman's in it, David Strathairn. It's got a fantastic cast, and it's a really good movie. Shocking. It looks like for once the Academy got it right. And we'll talk here in a few minutes about where the Academy once again got it wrong when we get to our dumbasses. But Nightmare Alley is a little long, little slow at times. Good ending. I feel like I should have seen it coming. But overall, I really did enjoy it. Currently available on HBO Max, so you can check it out there. Coming out on Blu-ray and DVD, I believe, in a couple weeks. But again, out of the 4 movies that I have sampled, out of the 10 Best Picture nominees, Nightmare Alley is by far the best. And I will give it 3 frenzies. And once we get everything sorted out, Dave will join in hopefully next week, and he'll give you his 2 cents on Nightmare Alley. Next week, we're hoping also to have a review of Kimmy, Steven Soderbergh's mystery that's also on HBO Max, starring Zoe Kravitz. Of course, she's coming up as Catwoman in The Batman in a few weeks. One other movie tidbit before we move on to the Red Forum and Dumbasses. Spider-Man No Way Home passes Avatar as now the 3rd highest grossing domestic movie release of all time. And I always kind of celebrate anytime a movie passes Avatar or Titanic, because I saw Titanic. Titanic was overrated. And I didn't even bother with Avatar because it just looks ridiculous. All right, we got to catch up. We didn't have time last week to do a weekend edition version of the Red Forum and Dumbasses of the Week. So we've got a whole bunch here. As I mentioned, we're going to blow through these, try to get this episode up and posted as quickly as possible. I mentioned the Oscars and how they got one thing right with Nightmare Alley. Of course, they've decided to go with 3 hosts this year for their ceremony, their televised ceremony. And of course, they had to pick some of the most ridiculous hosts possible. And they have to check all the boxes, of course. So we've got Wanda Sykes, lesbian, check, not funny. Regina Hall, I don't even know, honestly, who Regina Hall is. And I pay attention to my movies. I don't know who Regina Hall is. And then finally, last but least, Amy Schumer. Offensive, unfunny, and of course we all know who she's related to. So just when you thought the Oscars were going to try to avoid self-imploding as the ratings plummet year after year, as they alienate more and more people like me. I used to enjoy the Oscars. I used to go to Oscar parties 15, 20 years ago. I won't even watch them anymore. I haven't watched an Oscar ceremony in 4 or 5 years. Dolly Parton, I know, shocking. I don't want to call her out as a dumbass, but I don't like this logic she's using. Now, of course, I don't believe she should be nominated, let alone inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because she's not rock and roll. She's great. She's awesome. We all love Dolly Parton. But now she says if she makes it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, she will actually make a rock album. Now, to me, that seems bass-ackwards. You're putting the cart before the horse. So if you get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you'll actually start making rock and roll music. I'm sorry, Dolly. That's just a dumbass idea. Hillary Rodham Clinton, it's bad enough her and Bill are quote-unquote authors of thrillers now. Of course, they're not writing anything. They've got other writers doing the work for them. I believe James Patterson was helping out Bill on his novels. We all know how great James Patterson is as a writer. And Hillary Rodham Clinton, the thing with her book, State of Terror, is now they're going to make it into a feature film. I don't understand why Hollywood is so obsessed giving tens of millions of dollars to Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Netflix, of course, did that for development deals. And the Clintons with these books, of course, that's the New York publishing groups. But left coast, liberal Northeast, same difference. I just don't understand the appeal of wanting to get in bed with these people. Yeah, I said get in bed. Sorry, Bill. Just a whole complete dumbass situation. Stop pandering to these politicians on one side of the aisle. It's a bad look. And again, you alienate a great, great portion of the people who you could bring in as an audience. This one's kind of tricky for me. It's media in a loosely related way, and it's really localized. But I'm so offended by this, I've got to bring this up. Where I live, there is a local television station. We have, of course, the big three when it comes to news. I think Fox and CBS here, where I live, are combined. And I won't say the call letters of our NBC affiliate. Whoops. Last letter of the call letters is U. Whoops. There was a heinous, awful murder here in the area recently, a double murder. One of the most disgusting things I've seen possibly in my lifetime, living a vast, probably 75% of my life here. vast amount of time I've spent here, it's got to be one of the worst, if not the worst things I've ever seen, because there are other circumstances and details involved beyond just a double homicide that make it disgusting. But the key point of it is that it happened at a local Papa John's. I know this stuff is probably random, but it's just somebody's still got to be looking out for it. You read the story on the website for this news channel, and you get to the part where it describes it's at Papa John's, what happened, and then you look to your right, and there it is, a Papa John's ad. That's just wrong to me. Advertisement for Papa John's. Hey, get your pizza at Papa John's. Meanwhile, you're reading about a murder at Papa John's. We are getting lazier and dumber. Somebody should have caught that. Somebody should have done something about that to make sure that didn't happen. All right, playing catch up a little bit here on last week's dumbasses. Of course, PETA's upset with Johnny Knoxville because they say there's a possibility, based on what they saw in the movie Jackass Forever, that Knoxville and the Jackass boys were abusing animals. PETA should know by now they have terrorized, bullied, and scared Hollywood into putting disclaimers, having people monitor this stuff on all the sets. You know this is not happening. There's no way this can be happening on a major production like this. You know there's too many eyes on it. Social media, people with their phones taking pictures. PETA, take your board of directors, go out, have a nice steak dinner, and leave the rest of us the hell alone, you dumbasses. Susan Sarandon, of course, had to take down a tweet. Isn't that amazing? Another celebrity who tweeted something and had to immediately take it down because it was so stupid. Tweeting about the New York City funeral for police officer Jason Rivera, Sarandon looked at all the thousands upon thousands of police officers that had gathered for the ceremony, for the funeral, and had to say, well, gee, if all the police are concentrated in this one area, I guess we don't have to worry about crime. So what do we need the police for? Dumbass. Yeah, you can afford private security, so you don't have to worry like the rest of us do. We need the police. Her, Tim Robbins, of course, Sean Penn in that stupid movie she did, Dead Man Walking, boring as all get out. Another crazy ass Hollywood liberal. You're a dumbass, Susan Sarandon. And again, I say this every week. I'm not trying to pick on Democrats or liberals. I'm really not. There are more than enough stupid shenanigans going on at Fox News and in the Republican Party. It just happens that a lot of times, because they own the media, the liberals tend to do the stupider things because they feel more comfortable around their brethren at CNN or MSNBC. Of course, we got to call out Joe Rogan. I've tried to defend him, and I still don't believe people should be censoring him. But all these clips coming up about his use of the N-word are disturbing. Now, of course, a lot of it's taken out of context. But when Spotify decides they have to take off 100 episodes, roughly, of his podcast because of that kind of language, and Rogan agrees with them, can't back you up this time, Joe. You're a dumbass. Finally, tied into that, Neil Young gets yet another award for being a dumbass this week. Not only did he tell Spotify employees to quit the company before it ate up their souls, Mr. Melodrama, good Lord. And then, of course, we find out that he's pulled all his money out of banks because they're supporting the fossil fuel industry. Neil, just leave us alone. Your music is overrated. You're a nut job. Go live in your hemp house somewhere and leave the rest of us the hell alone, dumbass. All right, that is it. Like I said, we have to cut things short this week. Hopefully, Dave and I will be able to do our regular full podcast episodes Thursday morning and Saturday morning for you. Have a great weekend. We'll check you out next week. Later, kids.